back to my YouTube channel. Hi, I am Risa Victorio of Axezoriz Crochet. Today, I will be sharing with you 7 things to consider before making an amigurumi. Amigurumi is the term used in crocheting miniature figures. It is derived from the Japanese words ami, meaning to knit or crochet, gurumi, meaning wrapping, as in nuigurumi, sewn stuffed doll. Amigurumi is about making pretty figures like your favorite pet or toy, which involves working in the round, making spheres, cones, and other 3D shapes before stuffing them. Basically, amigurumi projects use single crochet, resulting in a smoother and more even surface whose gaps are unrecognizable. I didn't use other stitches in this recording. Later, if I will be able to do it with different stitches, I will share it with you in other videos. I decided to do this video tutorial as an introduction in a series of amigurumi projects. We will apply the things you learn from here as we move on from one project to another. To begin with, the first thing we need to consider when making an amigurumi is choosing the right hook. These are my sample balls. They were made with the same pattern and the same yarn, but of different hook sizes. This ball was made with the use of 5mm hook, the biggest among the 3. The finish is hairy and have big gaps that the stuffing is visible. The second one, still a bit hairy for me, was made with the use of 3mm hook. Gaps are smaller, but the stuffing are still visible. The third one was made with 1mm hook. The finish is smooth, and the stuffing is not visible. I think 1mm hook is the right one for me. The second thing we need to consider in making an amigurumi is the material to use. I have 2 kinds of materials to compare. These are the mercerized cotton crochet thread by Canon and the acrylic yarn by Love Nuts. The mercerized cotton crochet thread is made of 100% cotton fiber. It is sturdy and can hold good shape with smooth finish. I want to show you my old projects made of this. This is Timo's hat of League of Legends. This is actually a keychain made for a friend and a toy minion with one eye. This is not yet done, obviously. I just want you to see the smooth finish and its luster with no visible hair. I think this is best for little toys and to our environment because it is made of natural fiber. On the other hand, the acrylic yarn is made of 100% high bulk acrylic fiber. It is stretchy and hairy. This is Eve of Wall E, and this is Margot, my first dog. I made them using my 5mm hook. See that the gaps are big and the stuffing is visible. It is also stretchy and hairy. Look what happened with her leg. As I have discussed earlier, using smaller hook may lessen the hairy finish, but not as smooth than the cotton yarn. It is synthetic and not good for our environment. But talking about the budget, acrylic yarn is cheaper than the cotton yarn. The third thing to consider in making an amigurumi is the technique that you are going to use in working in the round. The first technique I want to share with you is the magic ring. Let's try and make magic ring. Place the tail in front of your palm and hold it down with your thumb and your pointer finger. Wrap the working end to your pointer finger like so, forming a loop. Cross it over the tail end. Pinch it with your thumb. Pinch the other end with your middle finger and ring finger. Insert the hook under the front thread. Grab the yarn over and pull through the loop. Release the loop from your finger. This is now your magic ring. Work your first round into this ring. Normally, 6 single crochets or depends on your pattern. When you're done, pull the tail like so. And you're done with row 1. Then, you may now continue working your rows following your pattern. The second technique I want to share is working on chain 2. Go ahead and make chain 2 with no slip knot this time. Single crochet on the second chain from hook. Work another 5 single crochets on the same chain. A total of 6 single crochet for your row 1. Then, you may now continue working your rows following your pattern. I continue doing the rounds so we could see the difference. With the magic ring, I noticed that there is a bump here or seems like a separation. I don't know, but I have seen a lot of videos using magic ring and they don't have a problem like this. Maybe it's just me. This is too obvious, especially when you are doing a conical shape. With the chain 2 technique, this is not thin. There are some instances when you will make a bigger hole. Don't worry, just pull the tail tight like so. Yes, we can pull the tail because we don't do the slip knot at the start. Experiment on the 2 techniques and decide which one is better for you. The fourth thing you need to consider is how to join each round. Going back to row 1, the next thing we need to do is to join the last stitch to the first stitch. There are 4 techniques I want to share with you. The first technique is the spiral join. This is the easiest one. All you need to do is to continue single crochet to the first stitch of the previous row, like so. This is now the first stitch of row 2. Once done, put a stitch marker. This is important because it will be difficult for you to find the first stitch, especially if you mess up counting the stitches. I will finish until row 3. I will pause this video and will come back to you. Welcome back. This is now our sample. Let me remove the stitch marker so you can see clearly. Notice that the last stitch is not level with the first stitch because we are crocheting in spiral. Suppose you decide to use this technique. Let me show you how to cover this up using this piece. This is the last stitch. The first stitch is here, the second stitch, and this is the back loop of the first stitch. Slip stitch on the second stitch, then pull the tail, and then grab the tail using back loop of the first stitch. Then I will sew this part in place where it will not be noticeable. Spiral join is fine as long as you are not planning to change color. As you can see from here, it is somewhat jagged and not nice to see, like this tissue holder cover. See? And you don't want that, do you? The second technique is the simple slip stitch chain 1 join. From last stitch of row 1, let's do slip stitch on the first stitch of the previous row. Then chain 1. Then start row 2 by single crochet on the same stitch. You may or may not use stitch marker in this. Go ahead and do the rest of the row, and I will come back to you once I am in row 3. Welcome back. I have finished row 3. Notice here that the last stitch is level to the first stitch. Join is noticeable due to the chain 1 here in the middle, and it has horizontal line due to the slip stitch. Let's take a look at this sample. You can still notice the difference between the normal stitches to the one created by the slip stitch chain 1. Now, let's change color. I have done the slip stitch already. Then, grab an off-white yarn. Then make a loop and insert into the hook and pull through. Then, single crochet on the same stitch as slip stitch. I will do another 3 rounds, and while doing this, let's pause the video and I will come back to you in a short while. Welcome back. 3 rounds are done, and let's take a look. The violet color is coming out here. This is the last stitch we made with violet color. There is also a defined line here that makes the join noticeable. Compared to the spiral join, this is better. The third technique I want to share with you is the complex slip stitch chain 1 join. Coming from the last stitch of the first row, pull the loop, release the loop from the hook, then make the first stitch wider by inserting your hook back and forth in twisting motion. Insert the hook at the back of the first stitch. Make sure that the working thread is under the hook. Then, insert the loop into the hook. Pull the working thread. Grab the loop with your hook. This time, release the tension from the working thread and pull through. Turn your work and then chain 1. Then, single crochet on the same stitch as slip stitch. Continue on working on row 2. Again, I will pause the video and will come back to you in a short while. Row 3 is done. What do you think? At this point, the join is not visible. I have a sample here. Defined lines are lessened, making the joins invisible. Let's change color. After the slip stitch is done, grab an off-white yarn and make a loop. Then insert the hook into the loop and pull through. That makes the chain 1 with a change of color. The off-white yarn will be seen in front, while the yellow yarn will sit at the back and it will be hidden. That makes the change in color unnoticeable. Then, continue single crochet on the same stitch as the slip stitch to start the round. Go ahead and finish the round. I will pause the video and will come back to you once I'm done. Welcome back. We are at the end of the round and I want to show you again how to join using the complex slip stitch chain 1. This time with a new color. Pull the loop, release the loop from the hook, then make the first stitch wider by inserting your hook back and forth in twisting motion. Insert the hook at the back of the first stitch. Make sure that the working thread is under the hook. Then, insert the loop into the hook. Pull the working thread. Turn your work. Grab the loop with your hook. This time, release the tension from the working thread and pull through. Turn your work and then chain 1. Go ahead and finish until the third row of off-white yarn, and I will see you there. Welcome back. 3 rounds are done, and let us see. It is hardly noticeable, isn't it? And the fourth and the last technique I want to share with you is, I call it invisible join. Okay, let us try this. We are in the last stitch of the first row. This is the first stitch and the second stitch of the previous row. One loop on the hook, pull this up, release the hook from the loop, and try to widen the second stitch by moving the hook back and forth in twisting motion. Let's do a slip stitch by inserting the hook at the back of the second stitch. Then, insert the loop into the hook. Pull the working thread to tighten it up. Then grab it and pull through. Put on the stitch marker. Turn your work. Pull the working thread. Insert the hook into the thread where the last stitch made and into the front loop of the first stitch of the previous row. Yarn over and pull through. Release the stitch marker. Be careful not to lose the loop. Insert the hook into that loop. Then yarn over and pull through to complete the single crochet stitch. This is now the first single crochet of row 2. We will do another single crochet on the same stitch. Continue working on row 2. I'll come back to you once I am in row 3. Welcome back. This is the last single crochet of row 2. Again, this is the first stitch and the second stitch of the previous row. One loop on the hook. It is already pulled up, so just release the hook from the loop. Do a slip stitch by inserting the hook at the back of the second stitch. Insert the loop into the hook. Pull the working thread to tighten it up. Then grab it and pull through. Put on the stitch marker. Turn your work. Insert the hook into the thread where the last stitch made and into the front loop of the first stitch of the previous row. Yarn over and pull through. Release the stitch marker. Be careful not to lose the loop. Insert the hook into that loop, then yarn over and pull through to complete the single crochet stitch. This is now the first single crochet of row 3. Single crochet on the next stitch and continue working on row 3. I'll come back to you once row 3 is done. Welcome back. Row 3 is done and also with the first single crochet of the row. Let's take a look. Can you still determine where the join is? I have here a sample. Let's see. Can you notice the join? I hope not. Let's change color. Pull this up. Release the hook from the loop and try to widen the second stitch by moving the hook back and forth in twisting motion. Let's do a slip stitch by inserting the hook at the back of the second stitch. Then insert the loop into the hook. Pull the working thread to tighten it up. Turn your work. Then grab it and pull through. Turn your work. Put on the stitch marker. Insert the hook into the thread where the last stitch made and into the front loop of the first stitch of the previous row. If you're having a hard time inserting your hook, use a smaller size hook. Grab the off-white yarn, make a loop, insert this to the hook and pull through. Insert the hook into the loop where your stitch marker. Then release the stitch marker. I think this is better than the one I showed you earlier, so you will not lose the loop. And pull through 2 loops to complete the single crochet stitch. Notice that the off-white yarn is at the front while the blue one sits at the back and stay hidden. In this way, the change of color will be subtle and hardly noticeable. Then continue the rounds and I'll be back when I finish the 3rd round. Welcome back. 3 rounds are done. Can you still spot the join? Let's compare these 4 techniques and decide for yourself which technique are you going to use. I put some fiber fill so it can stand and we can see better. This is the spiral join. The join is very obvious with this jagged look. A simple slip stitch chain 1 join, a little spike here and has defined lines that makes the change of color noticeable. The complex slip stitch chain 1 join, the slip stitch chain 1 is done at the back, making the defined lines smaller and less noticeable. The chain 1 is hidden at the back, thus making a smooth change of color, eliminating the spike. And the last technique, the invisible join. As the name implies, the join is not visible. Both the first and the last stitch laid side by side as normal stitches because all the stitches making the join are done at the back. The fifth thing you need to consider before making an amigurumi is how to increase the number of stitches in the round. These are my 2 samples. Their difference is the resulting shape. One is hexagon and the other is a circle. Here are the patterns used. Notice that their difference comes in row 4. The pattern on the left maintains the position of the increase at the end, or in other patterns at the beginning of every repeating count. The increase became the corner, and repeating it 6 times gives us hexagonal shape. On the other hand, the pattern on the right changes the position each round. In row 4, the increase is in the middle of 2 single crochets. In row 5 at the end, and again in row 6, it is in the middle of 4 single crochets, and so on. And it gives us a circle shape. Or shall we say, it's a perfect circle? If you still need to increase the number of stitches, you may follow this. The sixth thing you need to consider in making an amigurumi is how to decrease the round. Let's learn how. Applying what I have shared with you, I have made this sample using the following techniques. Hook size, 5 millimeters for this demonstration only. Starting the round, chain 2 technique. Joining the rounds, I chose the easiest one, the spiral join, because we're not going to change color. Increasing the round, I use the pattern in making a circle. After this, I continue making 8 rounds of single crochets all around. This is our pattern now. We are in row 14 with 36 single crochets. The next round will be the round where the decrease will happen. We will use single crochet 2 together stitch or single crochet 3. One thing though, there is a problem in using this stitch if we do it the normal way. It makes the stitch bulky and visible. The reason behind this is that making 2 stitches into one using full loops or the front loop and the back loop, the stitches stick closely together. And we don't want that in our amigurumi projects. Remember, Minion? Let's take a look. See this? Here is the pattern we are going to follow in decreasing the round. This is the end of row 14, a total of 36 single crochets. This is the first stitch and the last stitch. Let me remove the stitch marker first. Since you are using spiral join, I will continue and do single crochet on the first stitch of the previous row to start row 15. Let me put back the stitch marker so we won't lose the first stitch. Then another single crochet. And now the decrease. This is the back loop and the front loop. Here's the trick. We will only use the front loop of the stitch instead of using both loops as we normally do. So, insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. 2 loops on the hook, then insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Now we have 3 loops on the hook. Lastly, yarn over and pull through 3 loops. Then, 2 single crochets on the next 2 stitches. Let's repeat this. 2 single crochet on the next 2 stitches. Then the decrease. Insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. 2 loops on the hook. Insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. 3 loops on the hook, then yarn over and pull through 3 loops. Then 2 single crochets on the next 2 stitches. Again, 2 single crochet on the next 2 stitches. Then the decrease. Insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. 2 loops on the hook. Insert the hook in the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. 3 loops on the hook. Lastly, yarn over and pull through 3 loops. See that the decrease is unnoticeable. Then, follow the pattern I shown you and get used with single crochet 2 together or single crochet decrease stitch using the front loop only to make your decreases unnoticeable. Finally, the 7th thing you need to consider before making an amigurumi is choosing what technique to make single crochet. The first technique is yarn over. Here is my sample. This is what we normally do in working on single crochet. Insert the hook on the next stitch. Then, move the hook counterclockwise. Make sure that the hook is underneath the yarn. Continue until the yarn wraps the hook. Grab the yarn and pull it through the loop. 2 loops on the hook. Again, move the hook counterclockwise underneath the yarn. Continue until the yarn wraps the hook. Grab the yarn and pull through 2 loops on hook. Let's repeat for a number of times. And let us see. This technique gives us a nice V-shaped single crochet stitch. The second technique is the yarn under. Here is my sample for this. I am not used in doing this, but let's try. Insert the hook on the next stitch, then move the hook clockwise. Make sure that the hook is over the yarn. Grab the yarn and pull it through the loop. 2 loops on the hook. Again, move the hook clockwise. This must be hard since it will not wrap the hook and may slip the groove of the hook. Just grab the yarn, give it a little pressure, then pull through 2 loops on hook. Let's repeat for a number of times. This technique gives us a nice X-shaped single crochet hitch. Practice a little more if you are having a hard time doing the yarn under technique. I continue and finish the sample in 2 balls. I have made this with the same hook, yarn, and pattern. The only difference is the way you put the yarn and the hook together, giving you a totally different look, texture, and result. This ball is made out of yarn over technique. The stitches forms the letter V and it is bigger. While the ball made out of yarn under technique gives us X-shaped stitches, the stitches are more aligned with each other, more prominent, and has texture. I think that's all for today's tutorial. I hope you learned something. I love to hear from you and see pictures of your amigurumi projects where you apply the techniques you learned from here. You may send it to my Facebook account or through my email address. I posted it in the description box below. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do so by clicking the subscribe button. Then, click the notification bell for you to be notified once an update or new upload is out. Happy crocheting and have a great day!